The complaint notebook had 12 pages, not 12 entries. 12 pages, front and back, in Lim Ha-Eun's smallest handwriting, which she used when she had a lot to say, in limited space and absolutely no intention of editing herself. The notebook had started in October, 3 weeks after the person in apartment 12A moved in, and it had grown with a specific dedication of a project that mattered to her. She had given it a cover. She had numbered the entries. Entry number 1 read, "Moves furniture at 11 p.m. What furniture? How much furniture does one person need to move at 11 p.m.? Entry number 12 was being written at 11:47 on a Tuesday, when the dog started. Ha-Eun put down her pen. She was on deadline, the kind of deadline that had a specific hour attached to it. Midnight, the client had said. Like midnight was a reasonable time for a human being to be finishing a brand identity package. She had 3 screens open, 2 fonts she couldn't decide between, and a coffee that had gone cold 40 minutes ago because she kept forgetting to drink it. The dog barked again. She put her palm flat on the wall between 12A and 12B. The wall that was, in her professional assessment as someone who had lived in this building for 2 years, made of something that was technically a solid material, but functioned more like a suggestion. She knocked. The barking stopped. She went back to her fonts. The barking resumed. Ha-Eun closed her laptop with the careful precision of someone who was choosing not to throw it. She put on her slippers. She walked to her front door, opened it, crossed the 3 meters of hallway separating 12B from 12A, and knocked on the door of apartment 12A with the measured force of someone who had been building to this for 6 weeks. The door opened. She saw a hand holding a small dog that was still trying to bark despite being held. A dark sleeve, the edge of a jaw. Someone tall, slightly behind the door, with the body language of a person who had been awake for a long time and was aware of it. "The dog," Ha-Eun said. She had prepared more than this. She had, in fact, mentally rehearsed a version of this conversation that covered 3 separate grievances and included a reference to the building's noise policy, but something about the way the door had opened, half open, like a person who was apologizing before she spoke, rearranged her. "I know," the voice said. Low, genuinely tired. "I'm sorry." The dog made a small sound. "He does this when I'm on calls," the voice continued. I'm finishing up. I'm sorry." The door closed, not rudely, just closed, with the finality of someone who had meant what they said and was now going to do it. Ha-Eun stood in the hallway for a moment. She had not seen his face. She went back to her apartment, opened her laptop, found her fonts, finished the brand identity package at 11:58, 2 minutes before midnight, with the dog silent on the other side of the wall. She opened the complaint notebook. She looked at the 11 entries. She wrote entry 12. Has a dog. Dog barks during his calls. He has calls at midnight. Who has calls at midnight? She paused. She looked at what she'd written. Who is this person? She didn't know. In 6 weeks, she had heard him, but not seen him. Had felt the presence of someone on the other side of a wall, without any of the information that normally came with proximity. A voice. A dog? The smell of coffee at 5 a.m. reaching her through the ventilation. She closed the notebook. She opened her laptop. She navigated to the Shin Creative Careers page, the page she visited the way other people visited a restaurant they wanted to go to, but hadn't made a reservation for yet. The senior design position was still listed. She had applied 3 times. 3 times the same response had come back. Thank you for your interest. We will not be moving forward with your application at this time. She clicked apply. She filled in the fields. She attached the portfolio. She hit submit at 12:04 a.m. and went to bed with a particular feeling of someone who has done something they expect not to work, but cannot stop doing. On the other side of the wall, the dog had gone quiet. The billet took 40 minutes to write. Ha-Eun had drafts. She kept them in a separate document, not because she intended to use them all, but because the process of writing them helped her decide what she actually wanted to say, which was usually less than she thought and more specific than she started. Draft 1 had been 3 paragraphs. The final version was 6 lines, numbered, with a citation from the building's residential guidelines in a footnote. She was not going to apologize for the footnote. She was standing in the hallway with the printed billet and a piece of tape when the elevator opened and a man came out carrying a folder and moving with the specific, purposeful energy of someone on an errand they wanted to complete efficiently. He was young, mid-20s, she estimated. Nice suit. The kind of organized that suggested someone else kept him organized. He stopped at 12A and knocked. Ha-Eun looked at him. He looked at her. He looked at the printed document in her hand and the tape. "Neighbor?" he said. "12B, she said. He nodded with the expression of someone receiving information that confirmed something they already knew. He knocked again. No answer. "He's out," Ha-Eun said. She stopped. She realized she didn't know the name. "The person who lives there. He left about 20 minutes ago. I'll leave these." The man held up the folder. "Do you have tape?" She looked at the tape in her own hand. She gave him a piece. They stood side by side in the hallway for a moment, both taping things to the door of 12A, which was a thing that Ha-Eun reflected had probably never happened before in the history of this door. "What's yours?" the man asked, with the casual curiosity of someone who operated in environments where directness was normal. "A noise complaint, formal, with citations." He looked at the document properly for the first time. Read the footnote. "The footnote is good," he said. "Thank you." He stepped back from the door. His eyes moved to the portfolio case Ha-Eun had propped against the wall, thick, the kind that said professional, the kind that said she was on her way somewhere that required proof of what she could do. "Interview?" he said. "Second one. Different company." She picked up the portfolio. "I keep applying to my first choice, and they keep not wanting me." He looked at the portfolio case for a moment with an expression she couldn't fully read. Something attentive in it. Something that was processing rather than simply receiving. "What's your first choice?" he said. She told him. He said nothing. The expression did the thing again. That processing quality. Information being filed somewhere. He took out his phone. He held it at an angle she didn't fully register until later, when she would replay the moment and understand what he'd been doing. The portfolio case. The logo she'd designed for herself, in the corner. The style of it. Then he put his phone away and said, "Good luck with the interview." "Thanks," she said. She got in the elevator. The doors closed. Behind her, Kang Min stood in the hallway and looked at the photograph he had taken. He looked at it for a moment. He sent it to one person. He put his phone in his pocket and finished taping the folder to the door of 12A. Downstairs, Ha-Eun crossed the lobby. Ahjumma Choi appeared from behind the building directory with the timing of someone who had been waiting. "Lim Ha-Eun si," she said. "Did you see the person in 12A yet? You know who—" "I have an interview," Ha-Eun said, and went through the door. Ahjumma Choi watched her go. "She's going to find out eventually," she told the building directory, which did not respond. Upstairs, on Do-Hyun's phone, a message arrived. He opened it. He looked at the photograph of the portfolio logo for a long time. Then he looked at the document taped to his door. He read the footnote. Something that was not quite a smile did something in the vicinity of his face. He went inside. The elevator was small. Ha-Eun had never minded this before. It was a standard elevator for a standard building, room for 4 people comfortably, 6 if everyone committed to the experience. She had ridden it twice a day for 2 years without incident. Monday morning, 8:47 a.m. Coffee in hand, the kind in a paper cup from the place downstairs that she bought specifically on Mondays, because Mondays required external support. She pressed 12. The doors started to close. A hand stopped them. Do-Hyun stepped in. She knew it was him before she processed knowing it. Something about the height, the dark sleeve, the particular way he held the space around him. The same person who had been a voice and a hand, and the smell of 5 a.m. coffee for 6 weeks, was suddenly a complete person in a gray suit. And she was standing 18 inches away from him in an elevator with coffee she'd just spilled slightly on her left sleeve because she had startled. He looked at her sleeve. "I'm fine," she said to his unasked question. "I didn't ask," he said. "You were going to." He considered this. "I wasn't." The elevator started moving. Ha-Eun looked at the floor numbers. He looked at the floor numbers. The dog was not present, which felt like a missed opportunity. If the dog had been there, she would have had something specific to address, and this would have been a conversation rather than whatever this was. The footnote was good, he said. She looked at him. The citation, he said. In the complaint. Section 4.2 of the Residential Guidelines. I had to look it up. Most people don't read footnotes. Most complaints don't have them. She studied him. He had the kind of face that was difficult to read, not because it was blank, but because it was careful. Someone who had learned to keep the information it contained on a controlled release. He was looking at the floor numbers with the same quality of attention that she imagined he brought to most things, which was complete and gave nothing away. You read the whole thing, she said, 3 times. The elevator reached 12. The doors opened. They both stepped out and turned in opposite directions, her to 12B, him to 12A. And that was the entirety of the interaction. Except that Ha-Eun stood at her door for a moment before putting the key in and thought, he has read my complaint 3 times, and he is still making coffee at 5 a.m. Which meant he found it interesting rather than persuasive, which was somehow more annoying than if he had ignored it. She went inside. She changed her shirt. She went to work. At 10:15, the email arrived. She knew what it was from the subject line. The subject lines were always the same, a corporate template that had been used so many times it had worn smooth. Regarding your application, Shin Creative. She opened it. Thank you for your interest in the senior designer position. After careful review, we will not be moving forward with your application at this time. 4th time. Same template, same careful review that had apparently lasted less than 48 hours. Ha-Eun printed the email. This was a thing she did. Printing rejections rather than just deleting them, because printing them made them physical, and physical things could be disposed of with satisfying finality. She folded it in quarters. She walked to the recycling bin in the corner of the office. She dropped it in from a height of approximately 1 meter with the precision of someone who had done this before. Her colleague Nari started a slow clap from across the office. 4, Ha-Eun said. 4, Nari confirmed. You know what they say about 4. No one says anything about 4. They should. Ha-Eun went back to her desk, opened her current project, a logo for a company that made ergonomic office chairs, which was fine, which was the word she used most often about her work, which was a word she was becoming increasingly allergic to. Fine. She opened a second window, the Shin Creative website, their portfolio page, the work they did, the work she could do, the gap between where she was and where she wanted to be rendered in high-resolution images on a Monday morning. She closed it. She designed the chair logo. It was fine. It rained for 3 days. Seoul in November had opinions about rain, not the polite, manageable rain of other months, but the committed kind that arrived with intentions. Ha-Eun had checked the weather on Thursday morning, seen the forecast, and thought, I will remember my umbrella. She did not remember her umbrella. She stood at the building entrance on Thursday evening, looking at what the rain was doing to the street and conducting the specific internal negotiation of a person deciding whether to wait it out or accept being wet. The negotiation was ongoing when the elevator opened behind her and Do-Hyun walked out with 2 umbrellas. He stopped. He looked at her. He looked at the rain. He held out one of the umbrellas without saying anything. Ha-Eun looked at the umbrella, looked at him, looked at the rain. I'm fine, she said. You're going to be wet, he said. That's different from not fine. He considered this with the expression of someone who disagreed, but was choosing not to argue. He set the umbrella against the wall beside her. He opened his own and walked out into the rain and was gone. Ha-Eun stood at the entrance for 30 seconds. She took the umbrella. She told herself this was practical rather than anything else, and she was mostly correct. She returned it the next morning with a note. The note had taken 3 drafts, which she would not have admitted to anyone. The final version read, returning your umbrella. It was useful. This is not an admission that I was wrong to refuse it initially. The offer was presumptuous, and I maintain that position. but the umbrella itself performed adequately. Also, the dog barked at 6:30 a.m. this morning, which is a new time. Please note, she slid it under his door at 7 a.m. and went to work feeling something she identified as neutral. That afternoon, Ahjumma Choi found her in the building laundry room. Ahjumma Choi approached laundry room conversations the way some people approached ambushes, with preparation, patience, and the strategic use of a confined space. Ha-Eun, she said, settling herself on the bench with the ease of someone who had nowhere to be. Have you spoken to your neighbor yet? The one in 12A? We've spoken, Ha-Eun said, about the dog. But you know who He's a person who lives in 12A and has a dog that barks, Ha-Eun said. I know everything I need to know. Ahjumma Choi opened her mouth. How long does a cotton cycle take on this machine? Ha-Eun said. Ahjumma Choi, redirected, spent the next 12 minutes explaining the machine's cycles in comprehensive detail. She had almost looped back to the neighbor when Ha-Eun's laundry finished, and she excused herself. You'll find out eventually, Ahjumma Choi called after her. And then you'll wish you'd let me tell you. Ha-Eun took the stairs. That night she worked on the project. She had been working on it for 8 months, not for any client, not for any deadline, not for any purpose she could have explained to anyone in a way that would have satisfied them. It was a complete brand identity for a company that didn't exist. Built on a concept she couldn't stop thinking about, executed at a level that was several categories above her day job, and that she showed to no one because showing it would require explaining it, and explaining it would require admitting how much it meant to her. She worked until 1 a.m. At some point the dog barked once, briefly, from 12A. She paused. She looked at the wall. She did not knock. She did not write in the complaint notebook. She went back to work. Through the wall, though she didn't know this, and wouldn't have been able to hear it through the construction-grade suggestion that separated their apartments, Do-Hyun was also still awake. He had the photograph of her portfolio logo on his phone. He had looked at it several times since Kang-min had sent it. He was thinking about a project. He was thinking about the right person for it. He was thinking about the specific quality of attention that had written a noise complaint with a footnote and returned an umbrella with a position paper. The dog settled. Both apartments went quiet. The senior designer posting went up on a Wednesday. Ha-Eun saw it at 7:43 a.m. before her coffee, while her laptop was still loading. She had a Google alert for Shin Creative. She had set it up 8 months ago, when she had first decided that was where she needed to be. And she had told no one about it because some things were too specific to explain to people who hadn't felt the same thing. She read the posting 3 times. It was the role, not a role, not a similar role, not a role she could approximate. The exact role, with the exact responsibilities, for the exact kind of work she'd been doing in the project no one had seen. Brand identity, strategic creative direction, space to build something rather than just execute someone else's vision. She opened a new document. She started building the application. This one was different from the previous 4. She knew it while she was making it. The kind of knowing that doesn't require comparison because it's simply present, like recognizing a right answer. She pulled work she'd never submitted before. She wrote a cover letter that was specific rather than broad, that said what she actually thought rather than what she'd been told to say. That included one sentence her colleague Nari read over her shoulder and said, "You can't send that," about, which Ha-Eun left in because Nari had not been right about the footnote either. She submitted it Thursday morning at 9 a.m. The response came at 9:47 a.m. Thank you for your interest in the senior designer position. After careful review, we will not be moving forward with your application at this time. She read it 3 times, the way she always did, as if the third reading might reveal something different. It didn't. She didn't print it this time. She just sat with it for a while. At the same time, 40 minutes across the city in the Shin Creative building, Kang-min knocked on Do-Hyun's office door and came in with his own expression of a person who had timed something carefully. He put a folder on the desk. Do-Hyun was reviewing the applications for the senior designer position. He did this himself, always, for senior hires, because the instinct required for the work they did was not something that could be assessed by committee. He looked up. "What's this?" he said. Something I thought was relevant, Kang-min said. Do-Hyun opened the folder. Inside, printed pages. Work. The kind of work that had a specific quality to it, not technically perfect, which was table stakes, but something underneath the technique, something that understood what a brand was trying to say before being told. He turned the pages slowly. He got to the last one. He looked at it for a moment. He looked at Kang-min. Where did this come from? Kang-min had the expression of someone who had prepared for this question and was going to answer it in the order that made most sense, rather than the order that was most chronologically accurate. A photograph, he said, of a portfolio case in a hallway. Do-Hyun processed this. He looked at the work again. Name, he said. I don't have it yet, Kang-min said, but I know where to find it. He left. Do-Hyun looked at the work for another moment. Then he went back to the other applications, finished reviewing them, made notes, returned to the folder Kang-min had left. He picked up his phone. Find the name, he said when Kang-min answered, and check the recent applications. If she applied. He stopped. Check all of them, not just this cycle. On the other side of the city, in her apartment at 11:34 p.m., Ha-Eun was working on the project again, the one no one had seen, the one that had nothing to do with anything except what she thought design could be when it wasn't being asked to be merely adequate. She had a new document open next to it. The complaint notebook, digitized. She did this sometimes. Typed out the entries when she was procrastinating on something else, which meant the notebook had become, over 6 weeks, an inadvertent diary of her relationship with a wall between 12A and 12B. She was typing entry 9 when she heard, clearly through the ventilation, a voice. Not the dog, his voice. On a call. She had heard it in pieces before. The cadence of it. The specific quality of someone who was used to being listened to, who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. Tonight she caught a sentence. Find me Lim Ha-Eun. If she's applied to us, I want to know why it didn't come to me. Ha-Eun's hand stopped on the keyboard. She sat very still. She heard nothing else, just the indistinct continuation of a call, and then silence, and then the small sound of the dog settling somewhere. She looked at the wall. She looked at her screen. At the corner of her document, a saved file name. Shin Creative, application, V5, final, PED. She looked at the wall again. She closed her laptop. She opened the complaint notebook. She did not write anything. She sat with the specific feeling of someone who has heard a piece of information that hasn't finished meaning something yet. Kang-min found the applications on a Friday morning. All 4 of them. Submitted across 11 months, each one stronger than the last, each one logging a rejection timestamp that was, on average, 19 hours after submission. He cross-referenced the rejection timestamps with the system access logs. Park Ji-soo, every time. Rejection issued before the application had been opened by anyone else, before it had been routed to the hiring committee, before it had followed any part of the process it was supposed to follow. He printed the log. He brought it to Do-Hyun at 9 a.m. Do-Hyun read it once. He called Ji-soo into his office at 9:15. Ha-Eun, across the city, was at her desk designing a brochure for a company that sold ergonomic standing desks, a companion piece to the chair logo, a complete set of furniture she had now branded to a standard she felt ambivalent about. When her phone rang, unknown number, sole prefix. Lim Ha-Eun si? The voice was warm, professional, female. Yes, Ha-Eun said. This is Park Ji-soo, Director of HR at Shin Creative. I'm calling because we've been doing a review of recent applications, and I wanted to personally follow up on yours. A pause, the kind with orchestration in it, the kind that wanted to seem spontaneous. We'd love to have you come in for an interview. Ha-Eun sat very still. 5th time applying. First phone call. When? She said, because the first question had to be something that wasn't why now and what changed. And I heard someone say my name through a wall last night, and I have not finished understanding what that means. Ji-soo gave her a date, a time, an address. Ha-Eun wrote it down. She hung up. She looked at the address. She opened her Maps app, typed it in. The pin landed in Mapo-gu, near the river, not the Shin Creative building. She knew the Shin Creative building, had walked past it enough times to know its exact position in the geography of her professional life. This was something else. A different building. A smaller one. She told herself there were multiple Shin Creative offices. She searched. There were not multiple Shin Creative offices. She sat with this for a while. That evening, she put on the outfit she reserved for important interviews, the one that said "I'm serious" without saying "I'm trying to look serious," and took the elevator down at 6:45. The elevator opened on 12. Do-Hyun was in the hallway. He was coming home, jacket over his arm, the particular exhaustion of someone at the end of a long day that had not gone the way it was supposed to. He looked up when the elevator opened. He looked at her. She looked at him. She was dressed for an interview. He had looked at her enough times in the hallway to know this was different from how she normally looked coming home, and something in his expression shifted. Attention sharpening, the way it did when something didn't match. "Where are you going?" he said. Not aggressively, just directly, the way he said most things. "Interview," she said. "Now, it's 7. It was scheduled for 7. She held up her phone with the address. "Do you know this building?" He looked at the address. Something moved through his face. Fast, gone before she could name it. "How did this interview come about?" he said. She told him. The call, Jisoo's name, the review of recent applications. He was very still. "Lim Ha-Eun, he said. She stopped. He never used her name. In 6 weeks of proximity, billets, elevators, umbrellas, one extremely specific complaint about 6:30 a.m. barking. He had never used her name. The fact of him knowing it was something she had not finished processing since the night she'd heard it through the wall, and hearing it now, in the hallway from his mouth, produced a sensation she wasn't prepared to classify. "How do you know my name?" she said. He looked at the address on her phone. He looked at her. He made a decision. She could see it. The specific quality of someone who has been going back and forth on something and has chosen a direction. "Don't go," he said. "That address isn't Shin Creative, and the person who called you doesn't have the authority to schedule interviews." He paused. "I know this because I run Shin Creative." The hallway was very quiet. The dog barked once from inside 12A. Ha-Eun looked at him. She looked at the complaint notebook in her bag. She carried it everywhere, a habit, a comfort object she would not have called a comfort object. And she thought about 12 entries in 6 weeks, and the footnote he had read 3 times. "You're," she started. "Yes," he said. "Since when?" "Since October," he said. "I moved in October." She looked at him for a long moment. "I have 12 complaints about you," she said. "I know," he said. "Ahjumma Choi told me about the notebook." He paused. "She also tried to tell you who I was. Several times, and you didn't." "I was busy," Ha-Eun said. "You were." He looked at the address on her phone one more time. "Come inside. I'll explain everything. And then, if you still want to interview with Shin Creative, I'll schedule it myself." The dog barked again. Ha-Eun looked at the door of 12A, looked at the door of 12B, looked at him. "Fine," she said. And then, because she couldn't help it, "The coffee is still too early." Something shifted at the corner of his mouth. "Come inside," he said. Apartment 12A was not what she had imagined. She had imagined, based on evidence, something austere. Clean lines, minimal furniture. The apartment of someone who treated living space as infrastructure rather than environment. She had been correct about the clean lines. She had not anticipated the books, or the drafting table near the window, or the dog who was smaller than she had imagined, and was now sitting on her foot with the confident possession of an animal who had decided this was where he lived. "He does that," Do-Hyun said. "I know," Ha-Eun said. "He does it to everyone, or just people who've complained about him?" "First time for the latter category." She looked down at the dog. The dog looked up at her with the specific expression of a creature entirely unbothered by its own reputation. Do-Hyun made tea, not coffee, which she noted, and sat across from her and told her everything in the order it had happened, which was the most efficient order and also the most disorienting one. Kang Min's photograph of her portfolio, the folder on his desk, the work he had seen, the 4 applications, and what he had found when he looked at the rejection logs. Jisoo's access timestamps, the call this morning, the address that was not Shin Creative. Ha-Eun listened to all of it. She was good at listening. She had learned, over years of client work, to receive information without reacting visibly until she had processed it, which was a skill that served her well in this moment. "The project Kang Min showed you," she said when he finished. "The work in the folder." "Yes." "That wasn't my portfolio," she said. "That was something else. Something I've been working on privately. It wasn't meant for applications." He looked at her. "I know." "How do you know?" "Because your portfolio is careful," he said. "Skilled, controlled, everything it needs to be. The work Kang Min showed me was different, less careful." He looked at the table. "More true." She sat with this. "He photographed my portfolio case," she said. "How did he get the private work?" "Your pen drive," Do-Hyun said. "You left it in the copy machine on the 3rd floor of the building. He found it, saw the files, returned it to Ahjumma Choi, and," a pause, "chose to show me what was on it before returning it, which is a conversation I intend to have with him." "And yet," Ha-Eun said. "And yet," he agreed. She looked at the dog on her foot, looked at the drafting table by the window, looked at this person she'd spent 6 weeks building a complaint record about, who had apparently spent approximately the same amount of time finding reasons to pay attention to her work. She reached into her bag. She put the complaint notebook on the table between them. He looked at it. "Ahjumma Choi mentioned it," he said. "She didn't tell me what was in it." "There are 12 entries," Ha-Eun said. 11 of them are about noise. One of them..." She stopped. She had not planned to say this. Entry 3 says, "Seems to take his work seriously. This is not a complaint. I don't know why I'm writing this here." He looked at the notebook. He looked at her. "I noticed," he said quietly, "that you were also up at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and that you worked through the Thursday night. It rained for 6 hours. You could hear me? The walls in this building," he said, "are not walls." She almost laughed. The almost laugh surprised her, came up quickly and got caught somewhere between her chest and her face and came out as just a breath. But it was close. "Jisoo," she said, returning to the practical because the practical was solid ground. "Is being addressed," he said. "She had no authorization to intercept applications. The access logs are documented. HR will handle the formal process." "What does that mean for the position?" He looked at her. "It means the position is open," he said. "And I've seen your work. The real work, not the careful version." He paused. "If you want to interview, I'll schedule it. Properly. With me." The dog shifted on her foot. Ha-Eun looked at the complaint notebook on the table. She thought about 12 entries in 6 weeks, and a footnote read 3 times. "Okay," she said. Jisoo moved on a Saturday. The formal HR process was scheduled for Monday. Documentation review, structured meeting, the careful procedural machinery of a company that had lawyers and processes and a specific way these things were handled. Jisoo had worked at Shin Creative for 4 years and understood the machinery well enough to know what Monday meant. She also understood that between now and Monday, there was a Saturday. The message went to 7 board members at 9 a.m. Not email, direct messages, personal numbers, the contact details she had accumulated over 4 years of organizing the human infrastructure of a company. Short, specific, devastating in the way that things are devastating when they are technically factual and contextually dishonest. Do-Hyun is moving to hire a candidate from his residential building. Personal connection undisclosed. Bypassing normal hiring process. Recommend board review before Monday's HR meeting. She attached screenshots. The screenshots were real. Messages between Do-Hyun and Kang Min discussing Ha-Eun, pulled from the internal communication system where they lived. The messages were real. The context had been surgically removed. What remained looked, without context, like exactly what Jisoo had described. 3 board members responded within the hour. By noon, an emergency board review had been called for Sunday morning. Do-Hyun found out at 2 p.m. through the board chair, who called him with the specific energy of someone who was not accusatory, but was concerned, and who used the phrase appearance of impropriety twice in 4 minutes. He called Kang Min. "I know," Kang Min said, before Do-Hyun spoke. "I'm already pulling the full conversation logs. All of them. All of them, with timestamps, and the application rejection records, and the access logs." A pause. "And I'm going to need Sunday morning. You have it." Do-Hyun hung up. He stood at the window of his apartment, the one that faced the street, not the wall between 12A and 12B, and thought about the specific shape of what Jisoo had done, which was small and precise and designed to create exactly enough doubt in exactly the right people. He knocked on the door of 12B. Ha-Eun opened it in the clothes she wore when she was working, which he had learned, from the evidence of 6 weeks of adjacent living, meant she was in the middle of something she didn't want to be interrupted from. She looked at his face. "What happened?" she said. He told her. She was quiet for a moment. "What do you need?" she said. "Nothing from you. I'm telling you because it involves you and you should know." He paused. "The board review is tomorrow morning. Kang Min has the documentation. Can I do anything?" He looked at her. The complaint notebook was visible on her desk behind her, next to the laptop, next to the project he had seen in Kang Min's folder. Open, active, in progress. She had been working on it tonight. "No," he said. "But thank you." Sunday morning, 9 a.m., the Shin Creative boardroom. 6 board members, Do-Hyun, Kang Min with a laptop and a printer, and the expression of someone who had been awake since 5 a.m. and was going to make that count. Jisoo arrived with her attorney. Do-Hyun presented the documentation in the same way he did most things, without performance, without escalation, in the order that made the story clearest. The full conversation logs, with the context that had been removed in Jisoo's screenshots. The application rejection records, the access log showing Jisoo's pattern across 4 applications over 11 months. The documentation of her call to Ha-Eun on Friday with the false address. The board chair asked 2 questions. Jisoo's attorney spoke once. The vote was unanimous. Jisoo's employment was terminated, effective immediately. The formal process would continue with HR and, given the access log findings, legal review. She was asked to surrender her credentials before leaving. She stood. She looked at Do-Hyun with an expression that had several things in it, and was letting none of them out. "She's not even that good," she said, quietly, only to him. "She's better than you think," he said. "You didn't read past the cover." She left. The board members gathered their things. The room cleared in the specific way rooms clear after decisions have been made. Quickly, with the sense of something finished. Kang Min closed his laptop. He looked at Do-Hyun. "The pen drive," Do-Hyun said. Kang Min had the expression of someone who had prepared for this. "I returned it to Ahjumma Choi within 24 hours, he said. "Everything on it was private. I showed you one image. I thought—" "I know what you thought," Do-Hyun said. "Was I wrong?" Do-Hyun looked at the boardroom table. At the documentation, Kang Min had assembled through an entire Saturday night, accurate and thorough and exactly what had been needed. "No," he said. "But we're going to talk about process after you talk to her," Kang Min said. Do-Hyun looked at him. "About the job," Kang Min said, very specifically. "I meant about the job." He left. Do-Hyun gathered his things. In the lobby of the Shin Creative building, Ahjumma Choi was at the reception desk, speaking with the front desk manager about something that appeared to involve a container of food and a very specific opinion about the lobby's design choices. She had arrived, she explained to anyone who asked, because Do-Hyun worked too hard and didn't eat properly, and she happened to be passing by. The front desk manager looked at Do-Hyun when he appeared. "She's been here 40 minutes, she said. "I know," he said. He took the container from Ahjumma Choi. She patted his arm. She told him 3 things about Jisoo that she had known since October and that turned out to be entirely accurate. She told him 1 thing about Ha-Eun that he already knew and 1 thing he didn't. He went home. He knocked on the door of 12B. Ha-Eun opened it. He was holding the container of food Ahjumma Choi had sent. He was also holding, because Ahjumma Choi had pressed it into his hands in the lobby with the energy of someone completing a mission, the complaint notebook. Ha-Eun looked at the notebook. She had it, Do-Hyun said. She said you left it in the laundry room in September. I was looking for that, Ha-Eun said. She also gave me a summary of the contents. He paused. She's thorough. Ha-Eun put her face in her hands briefly. Come in, she said. I'll explain the footnote system. The dog was on the couch. This was technically Ha-Eun's couch in Ha-Eun's apartment, which the dog had entered without being invited and had immediately claimed with the confidence of an animal with no concept of trespassing. Ha-Eun had decided not to address this, because there were other things to address first, and she had a limited amount of address in her at 9 p.m. on a Sunday. Do-Hyun sat across from her at the kitchen table. The complaint notebook was between them. The container of Ahjumma Choi's food had been opened because Ha-Eun had not eaten since morning, and the smell was not something she was capable of ignoring regardless of circumstances. The position, Ha-Eun said. Still open, Do-Hyun said. The process starts again Monday. Properly this time, with full committee review. He paused. Your application is in the system. The real one. All 4 versions. I had them retrieved from the archive. She looked at the table. You should know, he said, that regardless of the committee's assessment, my position is that the work I've seen, both the portfolio and the project Kang Min showed me, is exactly what we're looking for. He said it carefully, in the way of someone who understood the line between professional and personal and was choosing to stand precisely on it. I want you to have the job because you're the right person for it, not because of anything else. Ha-Eun looked at him. That's a very careful way of saying something, she said. Yes, he said. I'm trying to be careful. Why? He was quiet for a moment. The dog made a small sound from the couch and resettled. He reached out and picked up the complaint notebook. He opened it to entry 7. He read it aloud. Makes coffee at 5 a.m. that smells like the entire hallway and makes me wake up wanting coffee and annoyed at the same time. This is a specific kind of psychological warfare, and I want it noted. He turned a page. Entry 10. Held the elevator for 3 seconds today, even though I was still in the hallway. Did not have to do that. Did it anyway. This is not a complaint. He closed the notebook. He looked at her. I can make the coffee later, he said. If you gave me a reason to be here in the mornings. Ha-Eun looked at the notebook. She thought about 12 entries, 11 complaints and 1 thing that was not a complaint, and 1 entry 10 that was also not a complaint, and the fact that she had carried this notebook everywhere for 6 weeks, which was a behavior she had not examined closely until now. She thought about a footnote read 3 times. She thought about an umbrella left against a wall without commentary. She thought about a man who had read her work, the real work, the work she showed no one, and had said, more true. She opened the notebook to the last page. She picked up the pen from the table. She wrote entry 13. She turned the notebook around and pushed it across the table to him. He read it. She watched his face do the thing it rarely did, the thing she had seen once, briefly, in the hallway, at the corner of his mouth. Except this time, it completed the movement. It arrived. It stayed. Okay, he said. The dog barked once from the couch. Neither of them told it to stop. 6 months later, Ha-Eun had a desk at Shin Creative on the 7th floor with a window that faced east and a plant she had named after the first brand she'd redesigned there, which was a thing her colleague thought was unusual and she thought was practical. The project, the one no one had seen, the one that had lived on a pen drive and a second screen for 8 months, was now a real project. With a real client, with a timeline and a budget and a team of 3. She had a meeting about it on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m., and she arrived early to both, which was not something she did for other meetings. The coffee was still at 5 a.m. She had stopped complaining about it. This was partly because she was usually awake at 5 a.m. anyway now, and partly because the coffee had started appearing on the counter of 12B on certain mornings, already made, which was something she had not asked for and had not commented on and had continued to happen. The complaint notebook lived on her desk. At Shin Creative, not at home. She had brought it in on her first week, intending to put it somewhere private, and had instead left it on her desk where it was visible, which told her something about herself that she found easier to accept now than she would have 8 months ago. On a Tuesday in April, Ahjumma Choi appeared at the reception desk of Shin Creative. She told the receptionist she was there to visit an employee. She provided Ha-Eun's name and floor. She also provided, unprompted, her assessment of the lobby's typography, the placement of the reception desk, and one specific suggestion about the lighting near the elevators that the building's designer would later implement without acknowledging the source. Ha-Eun took her to the 7th floor. Ahjumma Choi stood at the window and looked at the view and said, "Nice." Which, from Ahjumma Choi, was a significant review. She patted Ha-Eun's arm on the way out. "I tried to tell you in October," she said. "I know," Ha-Eun said. "You weren't listening. I was busy. You're always busy." Ahjumma Choi pressed the elevator button. "But you listened eventually." She went down. That evening, Ha-Eun opened the complaint notebook to the last page. Entry 13, in her handwriting, read, "Neighbor is the CEO of my dream company, and also the reason I wake up at 5 a.m. and don't mind. This is the last complaint. I'm keeping the notebook." She closed it. Do-Hyun appeared in the doorway of her office. He looked at the notebook, looked at her. "Any new complaints?" She thought about it. "None," she said. He came in and sat across from her desk, in the chair that had become, over 6 months, the chair where he sat when he came to find her, which was most evenings, which was a pattern neither of them had announced or needed to. The city moved outside the window. "First time," he said. "First time," she agreed.